Hello, I'm Beth Joey and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Second video back, feels good, feels right. Let's go into some spooky season book recommendations of all the amazing books that I've read fairly recently that I think you should be picking up in spooky season because they are perfect spooky season vibes. So without further ado, let's get straight into book number 1, which is Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. I am obsessed with this book. It has honestly got the perfect gothic, spooky, eerie, cold, mysterious atmosphere to it. I think it could also work for a winter read, but winter for me is a little bit more joyous because like Christmas and everything. Sorry, there's some construction going on out there if you can hear that. That's what that thumping around is. But anyway, as for what it's about, it's set in the stark landscape of Iceland in 1829 and it follows a woman who is accused of the murder of her master. After going through the trial and being accused of this murder, Agnes is forced to live at an isolated farm with a family who wants nothing to do with her because they're horrified at the prospect of having to house a convicted murderer. And she's sent there to await her execution, visited only by a priest that she has mysteriously chosen to be her spiritual guardian of sorts, I guess, as she awaits this execution. Over the course of the novel, Hannah Kent evokes such strong emotion, or at least she did in me, as she forces the family that Agnes is spending time with to really evaluate the entire situation, get to know Agnes, get to know her circumstances, get to know her history and understand what led to the sort of fateful day where this master of Agnes's was murdered. And it forces the reader to question how a woman can hope to endure when her life is completely dictated by the thoughts, opinions, experiences of others. I absolutely loved this book for the emotions that it explored. I love this book for the creepy, eerie, and spooky and atmospheric setting. I love this book for the heartbreak that was reading it as well, because you go through the whole book knowing exactly how it's going to end, knowing exactly what's going to happen to this woman, but still hoping and praying throughout the read that something's going to happen that's going to get her out of the situation and it's not going to end the way you know it will. And I mean, those last chapters, those last moments of this story, I was in tears. They were heartbreaking. But I'm not suggesting this book because I think you want to be crying or anything. I'm suggesting this book because I think it is spooky, I think it is eerie, and I think it is perfect for the spooky season. The next book is The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner, and this book is set across 2 timelines, with the first timeline following Caroline, who is spending her 10th wedding anniversary alone in London, reeling from the discovery of her husband's infidelity, and then one day she goes out mudlarking along the River Thames and she finds this old Victorian apothecary bottle and is absolutely determined and set on finding out the history behind this bottle and what it was doing in the river. This is when our second timeline is introduced, and we're in 1971 in London following Nella, who was a once respected healer who's now using her knowledge in order to provide subtle poisons, I guess, to women who are trying to off their problematic husbands. Caroline and Nella's lives collide in this stunning twist of fate that I don't think I could ever have predicted when I first went into this novel. And I mean, the way that it explores motherhood, the loss of innocence, the loss of motherhood, just absolutely incredible, and I guess it is emotional in that sense as well. Sorry, I'm not trying to go for emotional reads, but I think the reason why this is such a beautiful spooky season book is because of that sort of dark, eerie atmosphere of 1971 London, because it does kind of give off like major witchy vibes with the whole apothecary situation and the poisons and potions, and because of this sort of murder investigation, I guess, that is happening throughout this book but decades apart. It's just a fascinating read and I would recommend it. Next up is a book that I don't actually own but I really need to buy because I loved it, and that is Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. This book is absolutely standout. I think it's amazing. It is a Groundhog Day-esque style story in which a mother one night witnesses her son killing someone else and she has no understanding, no explanation, nothing. This seems to have come out of the blue. She doesn't know why her son has done this. So that night she goes to bed absolutely distraught as her son is taken off to prison, and she wakes up the next day to find it's the day before the murder. No understanding of how that happens. She takes it as an opportunity to really learn and stop this from happening potentially, only for it to happen anyway. And then she wakes up the next day and it's 2 days before the murder, and throughout the novel it takes you through as she wakes up every day being taken back in time further and further to pivotal moments throughout her history that not only lead up to how this murder happened but also force her to really examine how her decisions and her actions have really shaped her relationships with her husband, with her son, with her family, with her work, with everything, while also being constantly threatened, I guess, by this idea that maybe because she's going back in time she'll wake up one day and just blink out of existence because she'll go back to a moment that was before she was born. It is honestly a fascinating story because even though Gillian McAllister is going backwards in time, she is able to push you forward through the story in that you're constantly learning new things. There are so many twists and turns. There are characters in these sort of two timelines, I guess, of like the present timeline as if time was moving normally, and then the previous sort of Groundhog Day timeline. There are characters with POVs where you have no idea who it is, no idea what the connection is. She's constantly forcing you to like make connections between these characters, but then chucking in some red herrings that completely lead you off on like a completely disparate path to what that character actually is doing, and it is fascinating. I think the way it explores motherhood is really interesting as well. All in all, just an incredible, incredible book. Definitely spooky in the whole Groundhog Day style. Definitely sort of magical realism, I guess, in that sense as well. And I think it's amazing. I cannot wait to read more from this author. I just bought another one of her books on Kindle, which I think is like How to Disappear or something. I'll put it up here. And I'm really, really keen to be reading that this spooky season as well. But beside the point, you should read Wrong Place, Wrong Time. For fans of a bit of fantasy romance in their spooky season, next up we've got Belladonna by Adeline Grace. I loved this book. I've got the special edition for the first book from Fairy Loot, obviously, but then Foxglove as well, which arrived fairly recently, and I'm really keen to do a reread of this before I jump into Foxglove to remind myself. But the reason why I really want to recommend this as a spooky book is because whilst I wouldn't really call it gothic in terms of atmosphere necessarily, it's very, very gothic vibes. So essentially this story follows Signa, who since basically the moment she was born, she feels like she has been cursed by death. This began, I think, when her mother died fairly shortly after she was born, and then every family that she has lived with since, there has been mysterious deaths, and then she's had to move on, and then another mysterious death, and then she's had to move on, and she's finally onto the last family at Thorngrove Manor, and she is determined to make this one last, only to arrive at the estate and find out that the matriarch of the family died of a very mysterious illness. The son of the family is trying to repair their reputation in light of his father's excesses, and the daughter of the family seems to be suffering from very, very similar symptoms to what the matriarch experienced right before she died. So Signa naturally is like, no, 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 this cannot happen. I'm gonna find out what happened to the matriarch in order to stop it from happening to the daughter. I'm gonna try and repair this family, and she's gonna do it all with the assistance of a stable boy that she meets at the manor, as well as the reluctant assistance, in that she does not want the assistance, of the very ever-present Death, who she feels has been following around her whole life and she wants nothing to do with. As I said before, this has definitely got very, very gothic spooky vibes, but then obviously it's got the murder investigation as well. It's got Death being an actual character, and then this beautiful love triangle as well, which I think is just super cute, but also admittedly you kind of know who she's going to end up with from the very outset. But 100% worth reading as a spooky season read. The writing is beautiful, the vibes are immaculate, 100% recommend. And lastly, we've got Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. This is again the Fairy Loot edition of this book. I love the yellow and I love the sprayed edges. I think it's super, super cool. But as for what this is about, it follows 4 women who kind of came up in Her Majesty's Royal Coven together. Her Majesty's Royal Coven being the sort of official coven of the UK. So these 4 women are Helena, who now leads up HMRC, is very much the head witch slash bitch in charge. Neve, who is a witch tutor of sorts, who's kind of separated herself from HMRC in order to become a veterinarian and use her skills to help sickly animals. Elle, who is just trying to be your average mother, but is lying to everyone in her family about her history and her past. No one in her family knows she's a witch. And lastly, you've got Leonie, who has left HMRC behind and heads up her own coven named Diaspora, which she has created in order to go against everything that she experienced while she was part of HMRC. All the racism, the prejudice, the bigotry, everything she is not a fan of. So she's started her own coven in order to combat that. All these women, since they were first friends, have sort of separated over their lives, but they are forced back together when the mysterious sullied child that is supposed to sort of bring about the end of days seems to make an appearance, and these 4 women are sort of tasked with figuring out what to do, and they all kind of disagree. Something that the child should be eliminated, and you can probably guess from my descriptions of the women who is in that party, and some think that the child should be taken in, given love, raised properly so that potentially they can stop this prophecy from ever happening. Not only is the story perfectly witchy and spooky for spooky season, but I think it deals with really, really intimate personal, and societal issues in this really fascinating way that makes you, one, question everything, but two, also understand the corrupt nature of power, the nature of being a woman in this world basically controlled by men, the nature of friendships, and frankly, all aspects of contemporary womanhood. I absolutely love the way it handled all of these topics while also being very, very grounded in the present, in that it would make reference to real life situations in the UK, like Brexit, like some of the craziness we've experienced with our various politicians, and in the second book, like the recent Queen Elizabeth II's passing. Some obviously more entertaining and funny than others, like the ridiculing of politicians. But anyway, this is an amazing book. All of these books are amazing books and I think you should read them. As a reminder, here they are. We've got Belladonna by Adeline Grace, Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson, Burial Rites by Hannah Kent, The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner, and Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. Do let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these books or if you're planning to read any of these books for spooky season, or just let me know what you are going to be reading for spooky season. I love talking to you guys and I do my best to reply to every single comment. I really, really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do let me know by liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell all down below. It's a super, super easy way to help my channel grow, and I will see you lovely people in my next video. Bye!